The lonely mansion. The dining room felt cavernous. Silas Blackwood sat at one end of the mahogany table, a single, stark spotlight illuminating his plate of steamed vegetables. The rest of the room dissolved into shadows, swallowing the ornate wallpaper and the portraits of stern-faced Blackwood ancestors. Each bite was a chore, the blandness mirroring the taste of his life lately. He chewed slowly, deliberately, the silence amplifying the clinking of his fork against the china. He could hear the wind howling outside, rattling the ancient window panes like bony fingers tapping for entry. He hadn't always eaten alone, not always in this tomb either. But the memories of boisterous family dinners, filled with laughter and clattering silverware, now felt like echoes from a dream he could barely recall. His family preferred the warmth of their own homes, the company of their own children, the comfort of their own inheritances. He snorted softly. The thought soured the vegetables even more. A soft knock broke through his reverie. "Mr. Blackwood?" a gentle voice inquired. "Come in, Lily," he grumbled, not bothering to look up. Lily Meadows entered, radiating a warmth that seemed to push back the shadows. She carried a small tray with a steaming mug and a plate of what looked suspiciously like gingerbread. "I thought you might enjoy a little something sweet after your dinner," she said, placing the tray on the table, "and perhaps a cup of chamomile tea to help you sleep." Silas eyed the gingerbread suspiciously. "You're trying to fatten me up, aren't you?" Lily chuckled, a bright, melodic sound that chased away some of the gloom. "Just trying to make sure you're getting enough calories, Mr. Blackwood. You've been looking a bit thin lately." She poured the tea, the fragrant steam swirling around his face. He reluctantly took a sip. "It's acceptable." Lily smiled. "I'm glad. I also brought a book. I thought I could read you a chapter before bed." Silas raised an eyebrow. "Reading to an old man? You think I'm senile?" "Of course not," Lily said, her voice gentle. "I just thought you might enjoy a good story. It's a collection of humorous short stories. I think you'll like it." He sighed, but a flicker of something akin to anticipation sparked in his eyes. All right, but don't expect me to laugh. I've lost my sense of humor, you know." Lily opened the book and began to read. Her voice was soothing, expressive, bringing the characters to life with subtle inflections and well-timed pauses. Silas found himself drawn into the story, a ridiculous tale of a man trying to train his goldfish to perform tricks. Against his will, a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Then a chuckle escaped, then another, until he was actually laughing. It felt foreign, unfamiliar, but surprisingly good. Lily paused, a triumphant glint in her eye. "See? I told you'd like it." Silas cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. It was mildly amusing. He took a bite of the gingerbread. "This isn't half bad either." The wind howled again, but this time it didn't sound quite so menacing. He remembered a Christmas years ago. The grand dining room, ablaze with candlelight, groaning under the weight of a lavish feast. His children, their spouses, his grandchildren, all gathered around the table. He'd spared no expense, wanting to create a memory of warmth and togetherness, but the warmth had been superficial. He remembered his daughter, Eleanor, complaining about the seating arrangement. "Honestly, Father, you know I can't stand being next to Charles. He drones on and on about his investments." His son, Richard, had been preoccupied with his phone, barely acknowledging Silas's attempts at conversation. "Busy, Dad. Important deal closing. And the grandchildren?" They were glued to their tablets, their faces illuminated by the cold, artificial light, oblivious to the grandeur around them. He'd tried to initiate a conversation, to connect with them, to share a moment of genuine affection. But his efforts were met with polite indifference, thinly veiled boredom, and the constant refrain of, "We have to be going soon, Father." The memory faded, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. He'd showered them with gifts, with opportunities, with every advantage he could provide, and in return, he'd received nothing. Just a fleeting visit, a perfunctory peck on the cheek, and the lingering scent of expensive perfume and hollow smiles. They were vultures, circling, waiting. He looked at Lily, her brow furrowed in concentration as she read another passage from the book. Her kindness felt genuine, unburdened by expectation or ulterior motives. She wasn't interested in his money, his possessions, or his legacy. She simply cared about him, about his well-being, about bringing a little joy into his lonely existence. He watched her for a moment, a new thought forming in his mind. A thought that felt both audacious and strangely comforting. A birthday wish. Silas observed Lily as she meticulously buffed the mahogany desk, her motions a ballet of efficiency. The sharp tang of lemon wax danced with the mellow ghost of gingerbread, a familiar and welcome perfume that always announced her presence. He shifted in his seat. "Lily, there's something I've been considering." She paused in her work, turning to him with a kind smile. "And what might that be, Mr. Blackwood?" "My birthday," he declared, the word feeling strangely stiff on his tongue. He'd let the occasion pass unremarked for years, not since Martha's passing. "It's next month, I believe. I'd like to host a gathering." Surprise flickered across Lily's features, swiftly softening into an encouraging beam. "That's a splendid idea, Mr. Blackwood. A perfect reason for cheer." Silas squirmed. Cheer for what, precisely? Another step closer to his final reckoning? He banished the morbid thought. "Yes, well, I was thinking of inviting the family. All of them." He scrutinized her reaction, half expecting a glint of doubt. He was well acquainted with his relations. Yet Lily merely nodded. Indeed, a family reunion. How delightful! A small sigh escaped him, almost inaudible. He craved her unwavering optimism. "I'll require assistance, of course. The invitations, the planning." "I'd be glad to help, Mr. Blackwood. Where shall we begin?" Her enthusiasm was infectious. "The invitations, I suppose. I haven't dispatched one in, well, an age." He indicated the stationery box on the desk with a vague wave. "Find something suitably dignified." Lily sifted through the assortment, settling on a weighty cream card edged with a slender gold band. Silas dictated the wording, his voice initially wavering, then gaining strength as he pictured the missives arriving at his relatives' lavish residences. "Mr. Silas Blackwood requests the honor of your presence at a celebration commemorating his 75th birthday. Blackwood Manor, October the 27th, 7 o'clock in the evening. Black tie welcome. How does that strike you?" Lily recited it back approvingly. "Impeccable, Mr. Blackwood. Elegant and concise." He commenced listing the names, his tone a blend of anticipation and trepidation. "There's my brother, Edgar, naturally, and his wife, Beatrice. Then my sister Clara and her husband, Thomas. Their offspring, Emily, Charles, and young, what's his name? The youngest. Always forget. Oh, and Edgar's son, David, with his, what was it? Tony? No, Tiffany. Yes, Tiffany." Lily meticulously transcribed each name and address, the scratching of her pen a quiet counterpoint to his thoughts. As she inscribed, Silas closed his eyes, conjuring a scene. He envisioned the grand hall, typically steeped in gloom, vibrant with illumination, the perfume of roses and lilies transcending the usual gingerbread, suffusing the space. He pictured his family, adorned in their finest apparel, lifting flutes of champagne in a toast. He imagined their laughter, unforced and genuine, a far cry from the stilted pleasantries he usually endured. Edgar, his expression softened by a rare, authentic grin, clapping him heartily on the shoulder. 75, eh, Silas? Still kicking. Clara, offering a sincere embrace, her voice laced with true warmth. "So wonderful to see you, Silas. We simply must do this more often." Even David, aloof and perpetually disinterested, offering a respectful, if brief, nod. "Happy birthday, Uncle Silas." He pictured them assembled around the long mahogany table, groaning beneath the weight of culinary delights. Bisque of lobster, succulent pheasant, a decadent chocolate tort, a veritable king's feast. And conversation, animated and engaging, brimming with shared histories and fond recollections, not the usual veiled inquiries regarding his health and the disposition of his estate. He envisioned himself not as the isolated, neglected hermit, but as the family patriarch, the axis of their attention, luxuriating in their affection. The faint scrape of Lily's pen pulled him back to the present. He blinked, the imagined ballroom dissolving into the dim familiarity of his study. The aroma of lemon wax supplanted the fantasy of roses. "All finished, Mr. Blackwood," Lily announced, presenting the completed list. "Shall I send them on their way tomorrow?" Silas paused. A chilling wave of uncertainty enveloped him. What if they declined? What if excuses poured in, citing pressing engagements or sudden ailments? What if the grand hall remained stark and silent, inhabited only by the specters of his dashed hopes? He forced the feeling down. He had to at least try. He had to afford them the chance to prove him wrong. "Yes, Lily," he affirmed, his voice now steadier. "Dispatch them tomorrow. And Lily?" "Yes, Mr. Blackwood?" "Thank you for your assistance with this." She offered a bright, radiant smile that banished the shadows that clung to the room. "It's my pleasure, Mr. Blackwood. I believe it will be a most memorable occasion." He prayed she was right. He desperately hoped she was right. He needed this, more than he dared acknowledge, even to himself. He needed reassurance that his family cared, that they perceived him as more than just a potential inheritance. He needed to believe that he remained, in some small measure, a part of their lives. Invitations and expectations. The unfamiliar smoothness of the parchment met Silas's fingertips as he finished addressing the last envelope. "Master Theodore Blackwood," he penned with surprising steadiness. Formal invitations were relics of a bygone era for him. Each curve and flourish felt like dislodging another brick from the emotional barrier he'd painstakingly erected. He arranged the missives into a neat stack, a miniature monument to both anticipation and dread, and left them by the entryway for collection. He lingered at the window, observing the postman, who, cheerfully humming, scooped up the pile. Each vanishing envelope carried a sliver of Silas's guarded heart into the world. He pictured them arriving, perhaps gracing polished surfaces, or maybe carelessly tossed onto cluttered spaces. Would they inspire delight, disinterest, or outright scorn? The vigil began. Across town, within a dwelling saturated with stale potpourri and simmering animosity, Reginald Blackwood tore open his summons with dramatic flair. Beatrice, ever watchful, peered over his shoulder, her expression a mask of ingrained disapproval. The rich paper stock, the elegant calligraphy, it reeked of fortune, a fortune Reginald felt cheated of. "Well, well," Reginald drawled, reading the invitation aloud with affected grandeur. "Mr. Silas Blackwood requests the pleasure of your company for a birthday celebration." He crushed the paper in his hand. A birthday celebration? After decades of radio silence? What's the old skinflint after? Beatrice retrieved the crumpled paper, smoothing its wrinkles with familiar expertise. "Don't be obtuse, Reginald. He clearly wants something, and it's likely tied to his coffers." Reginald began to pace the expensive rug, his Italian loafers sinking into its plushness. "He probably aims to flaunt his wealth, show off his estate, his expensive automobiles, his caregiver." He spat out the word caregiver like a bitter pill. After neglecting us for years, now he wants to play the kindly benefactor? "Regardless of his underlying reasons," Beatrice stated, her tone cutting, "we cannot afford to dismiss this. Think, Reginald. Time is not on his side. This could be our key." Reginald halted his pacing, a glint of avarice sparking in his eyes. "You believe he's finally considering succession?" "It's a possibility," Beatrice conceded neutrally. "At the very least, it's a chance to remind him we exist, to remind him of our needs." She adjusted her string of pearls, a quiet display of the lavish lifestyle she craved. He resumed his circuit, this time imbued with purpose. "But a birthday gathering? I haven't clapped eyes on Silas in 15 years. What am I supposed to say? 'Happy birthday, Silas. Sorry about your wife. Can I have some cash?'" He threw his hands up frustrated. The entire notion is absurd. "You'll manage, Reginald," Beatrice said, her voice hardening. "You'll be charming, attentive, precisely what he desires you to be. And I will be there, making certain you don't utter anything damaging." Reginald flinched inwardly. Beatrice's brand of assistance often proved more irksome than Silas's indifference. And if he offers nothing? If this is merely some sentimental whim? Beatrice's lips compressed into a thin line. Then we'll have squandered an evening, but we can't afford to remain on the sidelines. RSVP in the affirmative, Reginald. We are attending Silas's birthday. The invitation, once mangled and discarded, now rested, smooth and unblemished, upon the mahogany desk, an emblem of the carefully crafted performance that Reginald and Beatrice were preparing to deliver. They would arrive, equipped with insincere smiles and ulterior motives, primed to seize any advantage. Silas, in his solitary residence, continued his patient wait, completely unaware of the machinations brewing in the perfumed house across town. His hopes, delicate and freshly sprouted, hung precariously in the balance. An empty room. Lily Meadows, a human sparkler, had draped the austere Blackwood mansion in the trappings of celebration. Paper chains in riotous hues looped across the high ceilings, an impudent challenge to the somber gazes of Silas's forebears in their portraits. Inflated orbs of every shade danced on tethers, disrupting the room's usual staid atmosphere with their exuberance. The air, which typically bore the scent of aged wood and polish, now held the sweet aroma of Lily's vanilla cake, mingling with the faint, sharp tang of the balloons. From the window, a dark figure framed by sheer fabric, Silas watched. He wore his best suit, resurrected from its long slumber since his wife's passing. The fabric felt like an unyielding carapace, each subtle swish a mournful echo of lost years, of the quiet that had become his unwelcome companion. "Nearly there, Mr. Silas," Lily called, her voice ringing in the vast hall. With a concentrated frown, she wrestled with a defiant balloon knot. "Just need to arrange the snacks and we're golden." He offered a wan smile, turning momentarily from his post. "You've done wonders, Lily. It almost feels festive." Festive! The word felt like a forgotten language on his tongue. Decades had passed since he last knew such a sensation. Back at the window, his gaze was laser-focused on the long driveway. Each subtle shift in the light, each distant car's reflected gleam, sent a surge of anticipation through him. Could it be them, Reginald and Beatrice, finally arriving? Perhaps even some of the more distant relations, faces blurred by time? He imagined the greetings, the guarded exchanges, even the forced laughter as he pretended all was well, that time and distance could be bridged in an afternoon. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed once. 1 o'clock. The gathering was set to begin at noon. He told himself they were delayed, nothing more. The roads, perhaps, or Beatrice, undoubtedly caught in a final outfit change. Lily flitted toward him, offering a plate of neatly sliced sandwiches. "Mr. Silas, you must have something. You've been rooted there for ages." He dismissed her offering with a wave. His appetite vanished. "I'm not hungry, Lily. Thank you. 2 o'clock. The sun continued its climb, stretching long shadows across the meticulously kept lawns. Still, the driveway remained empty. A cold dread began to constrict Silas's chest. He searched for reasons to excuse their absence. Lost invitations, conflicting engagements, anything seemed plausible. A robin landed on a feeder nearby, attacking the seeds with cheerful indifference, seemingly immune to the oppressive weight of anticipation. 3 o'clock. The balloons, once buoyant, now seemed to sag slightly, their vivacity draining like a fading bloom. The untouched sandwiches, victims of time, were growing stiff. Lily, sensing his sinking spirits, gently touched his arm. "Mr. Silas, maybe they've simply been held up. How about some music or a film?" He shook his head, his eyes glued to the vacant drive. "No, Lily, thank you, but I think they aren't coming." The truth landed with the force of a physical blow, robbing him of breath. Years of buried hurt, of carefully cultivated disinterest, crumbled to dust, leaving behind a raw, throbbing void. He had allowed himself to hope, to clutch at the belief that perhaps his family cared. They didn't, simple as that, they didn't care. Turning from the window, his shoulders betrayed his defeat. The cheerful decorations now felt like a calculated insult, amplifying the starkness of his isolation. "Mr. Silas," Lily began, her voice laced with concern. He raised a hand, stopping her. "It's all right, Lily, it's all right. I should have anticipated this." He moved slowly toward the hearth, his gaze captivated by the licking flames. The fire offered a meager comfort, a faint light in the gathering dusk. He stared into the heart of the blaze, mesmerized by its ceaseless dance, its ravenous consumption of wood. The room felt colder now, despite the fire's warmth. The silence had gained weight, pressing down with renewed force. Only the crackling of the fire and a soft, almost imperceptible sigh broke the stillness. He was utterly, irrevocably alone. Lily's kindness. The grandfather clock in the hall tolled 8, each reverberating chime a painful jab at Silas's fraying control. Since 7, he'd been rooted to the armchair by the dormant hearth, a self-imposed vigil for a miracle that wouldn't arrive. An open book sat on his lap, its pages untouched, a mirror reflecting his fractured focus. The stillness of Blackwood Manor had become a tangible weight, a suffocating shroud extinguishing hope's last sparks. Soft footfalls heralded Lily's approach. He didn't acknowledge her entrance, though her countenance was etched with concern. "Mr. Silas?" Her voice, a soothing balm, barely broke the silence. He grunted, a guttural sound of resignation. "They aren't coming, are they?" she ventured, already knowing the grim truth. At last, Silas lifted his gaze, bloodshot eyes swimming with a familiar, acrid disappointment. "Number, they aren't." Lily knelt, her hand hovering before settling lightly on his arm, a grounding presence. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Silas. I know how much this meant." He offered a stiff, aching shrug. "It's irrelevant." Yet the tremor in his voice betrayed his stoicism. "It's not irrelevant." Lily countered, her tone firm but tender. "It's important that you yearned to see them, that you held on to hope." She paused. "And it's important that you're in pain." He met her gaze, truly seeing her for the first time that evening. Her eyes shone with a genuine empathy, a stark contrast to the grasping avarice he usually witnessed. "I baked a cake," she announced, a tentative smile gracing her features. "Your favorite, chocolate with raspberry." Silas's brows arched in surprise. "You baked a cake?" "Yes. I thought, well, even if they couldn't make it, we could still mark the occasion, celebrate you." He simply stared, speechless. He couldn't recall the last time someone had extended such selfless kindness, devoid of ulterior motive. The gesture, so unpretentious, so unexpected, threatened to breach the fortress he'd erected around his heart. "Let me cut a slice," Lily offered, rising. "Why not try sparking a fire? It's growing quite cold." Silas watched her go, a flicker of warmth beginning to kindle in his chest. He rose with newfound purpose and began arranging kindling in the fireplace. Soon, dancing flames banished the encroaching gloom, painting the room with a lively glow. Upon her return, Lily bore a small, intricately adorned cake on a porcelain plate. The scent of cocoa and berries filled the air, a comforting, evocative aroma reminiscent of his mother's kitchen. Setting it on a small table beside the hearth, along with 2 forks and a steaming teapot, she invited him to partake. They sat in tranquil companionship as they ate, the gentle crackle of the fire and the soft clink of silverware the only sounds. The confection was exquisite, richly decadent, the tart raspberry a perfect counterpoint to the chocolate. Silas managed, his voice thick. "Thank you, Mr. Silas," she replied, her eyes luminous in the firelight. After a contemplative pause, Silas set down his fork. "Because you deserve it, Mr. Silas. You possess a good heart, even if you don't acknowledge it. And because everyone warrants care." He scrutinized her face, searching for any flicker of duplicity, any shadow of the grasping nature he had come to expect. He found only sincerity and concern. "They're blind, you know," Lily continued, alluding to his family. "Blind to the treasure they possess in you." Silas glanced down at his hands, his fingers knotted with age and burdened by arthritis. "A treasure? I highly doubt that," Lily insisted. "You're compassionate, generous, and possess a kind spirit. Don't permit their selfishness to dim your inner light, Mr. Silas. Don't let them triumph." Her words resonated deep within him, a seed of hope finding purchase in the desolate landscape of his despair. He looked at Lily, her face bathed in the fire's gentle glow, and for the first time in years felt something other than bitterness stir within him. He felt appreciation. "Thank you, Lily," he rasped, his voice heavy with emotion. "Thank you for everything." She bestowed a radiant smile, genuine warmth reaching her eyes. "You're very welcome, Mr. Silas. Now, care for another piece of cake?" A change of heart. The candle stubs on the untouched cake guttered low, their waning light echoing the fragile warmth blossoming within Silas. He observed Lily clearing the table, her movements a study in quiet competence, so unlike the grasping chaos he'd always associated with familial gatherings. The silence in the vast dining hall was no longer a hollow void, but a pocket of shared understanding, solace discovered in the wreckage of unmet expectations. With a muted scrape, he pushed back his chair, the aged oak protesting against the polished floor. "Lily," he began, his voice gravelly, unused to conversation, thick with feeling. She stilled, a tower of plates balanced precariously. "Yes, Mr. Blackwood?" He moved towards the hearth, the lingering chill a constant reminder of his solitary existence. He contemplated the embers, their spectral dance reflected in the fatigue etched around his eyes. They didn't appear, did they? Not a single blessed soul. Lily carefully deposited the dishes on a nearby credenza. "No, sir, I am terribly sorry." Her tone was gentle, imbued with authentic sympathy. Silas emitted a short, mirthless laugh. "Sorry? Why should you bear that burden? They are my kin, and they've demonstrated unequivocally my worth in their eyes." He turned to face her, his gaze piercing. "Nothing, merely a strongbox to be looted after my demise." He conjured the image of Arthur, his brother, perpetually hungry for influence and renown. He pictured Eleanor, his sister, relentlessly pursuing ephemeral pleasures, forever craving more. Then there were the hordes of relatives, a gallery of grasping faces, each anticipating a share of the Blackwood inheritance. He'd imagined them feigning grief, subtly jockeying for position, already mentally divvying up his holdings, yet not one had bothered with even that charade. This realization, coupled with Lily's simple act of grace, unleashed something within him. Years of simmering resentment began to dissipate, supplanted by a nascent clarity. For decades, he pressed on, his tone strengthening. "I clung to this notion of family, of blood bonds, of ingrained duty. But what duty have they ever extended to me? What affection? What simple human kindness?" He swept his hand to encompass the extravagant room, the portraits of severe ancestors, the gleaming silverware and crystal that had never filled the emptiness within. "All this, it's meaningless without someone to share it, someone who genuinely cares." He inhaled deeply, the air feeling fresher, lighter than he could recall. He met Lily's concerned expression. "Lily, you're the only soul who has offered me any authentic compassion, any genuine warmth in far too long to quantify." Lily's brow furrowed with concern. "Mr. Blackwood, there's no need to say such things. But I must. You have illuminated this sepulchre. You've cared for me, not for what I possess, but for who I am, or perhaps for who I once was, and who I might become again." He paused, a newfound determination hardening his face. "I have reached a decision." He approached a small writing desk tucked into the corner, its surface typically cluttered with unopened invoices and legal documents. Opening a drawer, he extracted a weighty, leather-bound volume. "This," he announced, holding it aloft, "is my testament." Lily's eyes widened in alarm. "Mr. Blackwood, please. I intend to revise it." Silas interjected, his voice resolute. "I intend to bequeath everything to you, Lily." The words hung between them, laden with consequence. Lily regarded him, her face a study in astonishment and disbelief. She recoiled slightly, her hand fluttering to her throat. "Mr. Blackwood, you cannot be serious. I possibly could not." "I am entirely serious," Silas insisted. "Who is more deserving, those carrion birds who couldn't devote a single hour to my birthday, or you, who baked me a cake and offered me your friendship despite my gruffness and endless demands?" He moved closer, his eyes pleading. "Please, Lily, allow me to do this. To finally accomplish something meaningful with this cursed fortune." Tears welled in Lily's eyes. She shook her head, speechless. The prospect of inheriting Silas Blackwood's immense wealth was incomprehensible. She had only ever sought to alleviate his solitude, to inject a modicum of happiness into his existence. The thought that her kindness could be repaid in such a way, it was overwhelming. "But your family," she managed to gasp. "They'll contest it. They'll claim I manipulated you," Silas snorted dismissively. "Let them try. I'll ensure it's inviolable. And frankly, after this day, I care not a whit for their opinions." He felt a lightness descend upon him, unlike any he'd experienced in decades. He was liberated, released from their expectations, their scrutiny, their insatiable avarice. He was, at long last, master of his own fate. And he wished to use that liberty to acknowledge the one human being who had reminded him what it meant to be truly alive. The lawyer's visit. The grandfather clock in the hall tolled a somber 3, each reverberation underlining Silas's lingering disappointment. He remained in his study, the armchair's leather sighing under his subtle movements. Slanting sunlight painted the room, illuminating a ballet of dust, each particle a tiny relic of bygone days. He lifted the receiver, its smooth bakelite a cool contrast to his skin, and dialed. The shrill ring seemed to amplify the stillness pervading the house. "Peabody, Peabody and Stern," a starched voice announced. "Mr. Peabody, if you please. Silas Blackwood here." A brief pause followed. "Ah, Mr. Blackwood, what can I do for you?" Peabody's enunciation was always meticulous, each syllable deliberate and precise. "I need to redraft my will, Peabody, radically." A dry rustle crackled over the line as the lawyer cleared his throat. "Indeed, sir? May I inquire regarding the nature of these revisions?" "I intend to bequeath my entire estate to Lily." The silence that descended was thicker than the clock's pronouncements. Silas could almost visualize Peabody's cogs turning, assimilating this unexpected declaration. "Lily, sir? Dare I ask, is that Miss Lillian Hughes, who manages your household?" "Precisely, Peabody. That is exactly whom I mean." A hard edge entered Silas's tone, a resolve forged in the fires of yesterday's neglect. "Mr. Blackwood," Peabody began, his tone measured, almost hesitant. "Are you quite certain? It represents a considerable departure from the current document. Your family." "My family displayed their sentiments with crystalline clarity yesterday, Peabody. Not one could spare the time to acknowledge my birthday. Lily, conversely, has offered more solace in a year than they have in a lifetime." He paused, the memory of her gentle kindnesses, a single rose gracing his desk, a steaming cup of Earl Grey filling the void. "She warrants it. They forfeited it." Peabody was mute for another beat. Silas imagined the lawyer's disapproval radiating like a low-frequency hum through the wire. Such a decision would, naturally, invite legal challenges. Your relatives might contest it, alleging undue influence. "Let them. I welcome it." Silas's voice was devoid of inflection. "Lily has been a constant, a pillar of support. She's earned my appreciation, my esteem, and now my fortune. I trust you can navigate any objections they choose to raise?" "I assure you, Mr. Blackwood, I shall execute your desires to the best of my abilities, within legal parameters, of course." Peabody's voice maintained its formal, professional cadence. "However, I am obligated to advise you to carefully weigh the ramifications. This is a significant sum, and such a dramatic alteration, well, it merits sober consideration." "I have considered it, Peabody, exhaustively. Beyond your comprehension. I want Lily to have everything, every sou." "Very well, Mr. Blackwood. I will prepare the relevant documentation. Perhaps you could attend my office next week to review and execute them." "Make it tomorrow, Peabody. I wish to expedite this." A moment of hesitation. "Tomorrow? Very well. I shall adjust my agenda. 2 o'clock, perhaps?" 2 o'clock sharp. Silas replaced the phone, the click resounding in the stillness. He sank back into the cushions, a nascent sense of liberation bubbling up within him, an unburdening of obligation. It was an unfamiliar sensation, this freedom from expectations, this shedding of familial pressure. He could almost hear the cogs of their avarice seizing, their entitled fury backfiring like a poorly tuned engine. And for perhaps the first time in an age, a smile touched Silas Blackwood's lips. Small, hesitant, yet undeniably genuine, he anticipated the meeting with Peabody with a surprising degree of pleasure. It was a beginning, sudden affection. "He did what?" Beatrice's shriek, a sonic boom compared to her usual dulcet tones, fractured the silence as she snapped her compact shut, a hairline crack appearing in its mirrored surface. Reginald flinched. Her voice, typically a silken caress of social niceties, could shatter crystal when roused. "Keep it down, Beatrice," he cautioned, eyes darting towards Mrs. Higgins, the cook, whose pretense of polishing a teapot couldn't mask the quivering of her ears, "just what I gleaned from a source." He conveniently omitted that the source was Agnes Plumtree, a purveyor of gossip whose pronouncements were as reliable as springtime weather forecasts. Nevertheless, a seed of unease had been sown. Everything to the housekeeper? A commoner, for pity's sake? Beatrice choked, her complexion darkening to a furious puce. "After all our devotion, the endless cards, the occasional—" "Bottom line," Reginald interjected, silencing her flustered justifications. "If there's truth to this, we must act, post haste." He stroked his chin, calculation glinting in his gaze. A demonstration of solicitude is paramount. Beatrice's eyes narrowed to slits. "Solicitude? You mean feigning concern for that skinflint?" "Precisely," Reginald exclaimed, perhaps a tad too enthusiastically. "Think of it as an investment, my dear, a profoundly rewarding investment. We morph into the adoring nephew and niece, engaging, attentive, consumed with his well-being. Lay it on with a trowel." The Blackwood limousine, usually reserved for prestigious events, swept silently to a halt before Silas's imposing residence. Reginald straightened his tie, pasting on a smile that felt as genuine as a manufactured diamond. Beatrice adjusted her pearls, her face a carefully constructed facade of worry. Lily opened the door, her customary composure slightly askew. "Mr. Blackwood isn't expecting company," she stated, a note of suspicion coloring her voice. "Nonsense, Lily, my dear," Reginald boomed, sweeping past her into the entrance hall. "We're family, here to visit dear Uncle Silas. How is he holding up?" He clapped Lily on the shoulder, a gesture that felt more like an assertion of ownership than a friendly greeting. Silas was in the conservatory, immersed in the riotous hues of his orchids. He looked up as Reginald and Beatrice entered, a spark of something indecipherable flickering in his expression. "Reginald, Beatrice," he announced, his voice surprisingly robust. What a delightful surprise. He even offered a smile, a genuine one this time, although it failed to reach the depths of his eyes. Beatrice surged forward, smothering him in a hug redolent of extravagant perfume. "Oh, Uncle Silas, we've been so concerned. It's been too long." "Concerned? About what, pray, tell?" Silas inquired, his voice laced with feigned innocence. "Oh, Reginald inserted, slapping Silas on the back with excessive force. "Your health, naturally. Beatrice and I were just remarking that we simply must visit more often. Family is paramount, particularly as the years advance." He paused, waiting for Silas to acknowledge the sentiment, to perhaps even reciprocate with a token of familial affection. Silas merely smiled serenely. "Indeed, Reginald, family is everything." He gestured towards a pair of gilded chairs. "Please, be seated. Lily, would you be kind enough to fetch us some tea?" As Lily retreated, Reginald launched a barrage of insincere questions regarding Silas's vitality, his diversions, and his overall contentment. Beatrice echoed his words, adding a few carefully chosen anecdotes about their lives, all meticulously designed to present them as successful, considerate, and utterly devoted kin. Silas listened patiently, a glint of amusement dancing in his eyes. He was acutely aware of their motivations, of course. The sudden outpouring of affection, the saccharine quality of their pronouncements, it was all transparent, but he played along, nodding and smiling, offering only vague replies. He was relishing this performance, watching them shift uncomfortably, witnessing the desperation etched on their faces. He was toying with them, savoring every second of their unease. The tea arrived and the conversation persisted, a carefully constructed ballet of insincerity and scarcely concealed greed. Reginald subtly guided the discussion towards the subject of inheritances, mentioning an acquaintance who had recently departed and the lavish estate he had bequeathed. Beatrice added a remark regarding the significance of having one's affairs in order for any eventuality. Silas sipped his tea, his gaze unwavering as he focused on Reginald. "Indeed," he commented softly, "one must always prepare for the unexpected." The reading of the will. The scent of roasting chicken, a scent Lily had painstakingly crafted to fill the Blackwood Manor with warmth, seemed to mock the chill in the air. Silas, perched at the head of the mahogany table, surveyed his assembled relatives with an unreadable expression. Reginald, radiating a manufactured joviality, attempted to engage him in conversation about golf, while Beatrice, draped in a new, suspiciously expensive shawl, offered platitudes about his health. Lily, hovering near the sideboard, wrung her hands beneath her apron, a knot of apprehension tightening in her stomach. Ahem. Silas cleared his throat, the sound cutting through Reginald's droning monologue. "I've gathered you all here today, not just for a belated celebration, but for a bit of an announcement." Reginald's forced smile widened, revealing too much gum. "An announcement, Uncle? How intriguing!" He exchanged a conspiratorial glance with Beatrice, whose eyes gleamed with avarice. Lily felt a prickle of unease. Silas hadn't mentioned any announcement to her. She only knew he'd been unusually preoccupied these past few days, spending long hours in his study. A knock echoed through the hallway. "Ah, that must be him," Silas said, a hint of something akin to amusement flickering in his eyes. Lily hurried to the door, her heart pounding. Standing on the threshold was Mr. Peabody, his face as starched and proper as his meticulously tailored suit. He carried a slim, leather-bound briefcase. "Mr. Blackwood is expecting me," Peabody announced, his voice crisp and formal. Lily ushered him inside, acutely aware of the sudden tension in the room. "Mr." Peabody inclined his head to Reginald and Beatrice, offering a curt "good afternoon" before turning his attention to Silas. "Everything is in order, I presume, Peabody?" Silas asked, a strange light dancing in his eyes. "Indeed, sir," Peabody replied, placing the briefcase on the table with a decisive thud. He extracted a pair of spectacles from his breast pocket and perched them on his nose. "If everyone is ready, I shall proceed." Reginald puffed out his chest, assuming an air of dignified anticipation. Beatrice dabbed at her brow with a silk handkerchief. Lily retreated to the shadows near the doorway, her anxiety reaching a fever pitch. "Mr." Peabody cleared his throat again, a dry, rustling sound. "Last will and testament of Silas Blackwood," he began, his voice resonating with legal gravitas. He droned on for several minutes, reciting boilerplate clauses and legal jargon. Reginald shifted impatiently, occasionally casting impatient glances at the briefcase. Beatrice, however, remained fixed, her eyes darting back and forth as if trying to memorize every word. Finally, Peabody reached the crux of the matter. He paused, adjusted his spectacles, and looked directly at Silas. "And now, the disposition of assets." A hush fell over the room, so profound that Lily could hear the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. "I, Silas Blackwood, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous wills and testaments. I bequeath my entire estate, including Blackwood Manor, all investments, holdings, Riviere Blackwood, Vidier Pard, Vidier Phi Ward, and personal property, without reservation or exception to—" Peabody paused for dramatic effect, his gaze sweeping over Reginald and Beatrice. "Lily Meadows." The silence that followed was deafening. Reginald's face contorted in disbelief, the forced joviality vanishing, replaced by a mask of apoplectic rage. Beatrice gasped, her hand flying to her chest as if she'd been physically struck. Lily stood frozen, her mind reeling. She could feel the blood drain from her face. This couldn't be real. Reginald was the first to break the silence. "There must be some mistake," he sputtered, his voice trembling with fury. This is preposterous." He rounded on Silas, his face inches from his uncle's. "You can't be serious. After all we've done for you." "Done for me?" Silas echoed, his voice dangerously soft. "You've done nothing for me, Reginald, except remind me of the depths of human greed." He turned his gaze to Beatrice, who was now openly weeping. "And you, Beatrice? Your concern for my well-being was truly touching." He then looked at Lily, his expression softening. "Lily, you have brought warmth and kindness into this cold, empty house. You are more deserving of my gratitude and my estate than anyone else in this room. Mr. Peabody, ever the professional, cleared his throat again. "The will is legally binding, Mr. Blackwood, signed, witnessed, and notarized." He snapped the briefcase shut with a resounding click, the sound echoing like a death knell for Reginald and Beatrice's avaricious dreams. The aroma of roasting chicken now felt suffocatingly cloying. A legacy of kindness. The silence after Silas's proclamation was a suffocating blanket. Reginald's face, typically arranged in a practiced smile, twisted with raw indignation. Beatrice, ever the strategist, merely fixed Lily with a stare, her rouged lips compressed into a bloodless line. Lily's pulse hammered a frantic tattoo against her ribs as she grasped for normalcy. "More cake, Mr. Blackwood? It's your special day." Her voice wavered, betraying her unease. The room's atmosphere, thick with the siblings' hostility, weighed on her. Silas, however, appeared untouched. A subtle, almost impish grin tugged at his mouth as he raised his glass. "To family?" He toasted, the word laced with sardonic humor. "May their affection for me continue to illuminate the room." The toast lingered, unanswered, until Reginald's fist crashed onto the table, sending silverware dancing. "This is outrageous, Silas. Simply outrageous. You can't possibly mean it. Leaving your entire estate to domestic help?" He flicked a disdainful glance at Lily, his eyes sharp with malice. Beatrice, adopting a gentler tactic, countered. "Silas, darling, you're not yourself. You're unwell, we understand. But this is a monumental error. Consider the Blackwood lineage, the family reputation." Silas leaned back, his gaze unwavering. "The Blackwood name? A legacy founded on avarice and disregard? I think not. Lily has shown me more genuine care in these past months than either of you have in my lifetime. She is worthy." Reginald choked, his face flushing crimson. "Worthy? She's done nothing. We are your blood. We are owed this." "Owed?" Strength surged through Lily, surprising her with its intensity. "You are owed nothing. Mr. Blackwood is a generous man, and he has every right to dispose of his assets as he sees fit." The argument escalated into a discordant uproar of accusations and rebuttals. Lily receded inward, feeling increasingly exposed. She was a mere figurehead in their power struggle, a representation of Silas's defiance. As the quarrel intensified, Mr. Power Struggle, Peabody, the family solicitor, intervened, attempting to restore composure. "Perhaps," he suggested, his tone even and professional, "we should address this matter in private, in a more appropriate setting." He directed a disapproving gaze at Reginald and Beatrice. "Silas, are you resolute in your decision? Undoubtedly there will be objections." Silas met his stare, his resolution unwavering. "I am certain, Thomas. My will is final. As Mr. Tynandford Reeverd." Peabody predicted the will faced immediate challenges. Reginald and Beatrice unleashed a relentless legal campaign, asserting that Silas lacked mental capacity when he signed the document. Employing the city's most aggressive lawyers, they exhumed any argument to discredit Lily and nullify the testament. The following months unfolded as a blur of depositions, court appearances, and strategic legal ploys. Lily, propelled into the public eye, was subjected to unrelenting scrutiny. The press pursued her, eager to portray her as a fortune hunter, a schemer who had ensnared a vulnerable old man. Despite the intense pressure, Lily stood firm. With Mr. Peabody's guidance, she defended herself, determined to honor Silas's wishes. The solicitor, initially detached, grew to admire Lily's quiet resilience and unyielding rectitude. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge delivered a verdict in Lily's favor. Silas's will was validated. Reginald and Beatrice were vanquished. Lily inherited Silas Blackwood's considerable estate. The weight of the responsibility settled upon her. She understood Silas had entrusted her with something significant, something that could be leveraged to effect real change. Seated in Silas's study one evening, surrounded by his beloved books and keepsakes, Lily made a promise. She would not waste his wealth on trivial indulgences. She would channel it to honor his memory, to extend the kindness he had shown her. Her vision began to solidify. The city was underserved with resources for medical care, particularly for the disadvantaged. The idea took hold. She would establish a hospital, years advanced. Lily, driven by her empathy and Silas's memory, devoted her energy and resources to the endeavor. She assembled a team of committed physicians, nurses, and administrators, each sharing her dedication to providing accessible, high-quality healthcare for all. Finally, the momentous day arrived. The Silas Blackwood Memorial Hospital opened its doors. It stood as a cutting-edge facility furnished with advanced technology and staffed by the best personnel. The magnificent building stood as a symbol of Silas's benevolence and Lily's unwavering commitment. At the inauguration, Lily addressed a gathering of dignitaries, community representatives, and thankful patients. Her voice, while still touched with apprehension, resonated with conviction. Silas Blackwood possessed profound kindness, she declared. He recognized the inherent goodness in people even when they couldn't see it themselves. He instilled in me the importance of compassion, of contributing to the community. This hospital is more than just brick and mortar. It's a testament to his legacy. It is a sanctuary where all can receive care, regardless of their means. It is a place where hope can flourish and lives can be transformed. As she spoke, Lily caught sight of Silas's portrait hanging in the entryway. His eyes, captured in paint, seemed to gleam with approval. She knew he would have been pleased. She had fulfilled her vow. She had used his fortune to establish a heritage of kindness that would endure for generations. The hospital flourished, becoming a symbol of hope within the community. Reginald and Beatrice, mired in bitterness and resentment, faded into obscurity, their names associated with avarice and self-interest. Silas Blackwood, the solitary man who had longed for simple compassion, was remembered not for his fortune, but for his generosity and his steadfast belief in the potency of human kindness.